People are talking.
Welcome to the 47th episode of the We All Serve podcast. There we go. The man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Angel Torres. I still love your shadow box. So your better half. She done well.
She did, and she surprised me. I didn't even know it was coming. I think it was like my birthday or something, and she just showed up. And I used to have. It's so funny because I used to have all my medals and ribbons and name tags and stuff in a Tupperware box in the closet behind you. And she like went through and was organizing things. She's like, "Why is this here?" I was like, that's who I used to be." She's like, "No, that's who you are." And she went and right-sized it and put it on the wall.
That's good. It's good. It's funny because you spend so much time trying to straighten everybody else out and make sure everybody else is taken care of. Hardest thing is obviously taking care of yourself. So that's why you have people looking out for you. So
they say cobblers have the worst shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into this week's guest, as well as we'll also talk briefly about who we're having next week. But in general, how's your week been?
It's been great. I was telling a few friends that when you transition and you learn, I think Christian Anschutz said it best, is you start a new career and you knew all the stuff when you're in the military, but now you're the novice person. That leadership skill set is still inside you. You just have to learn, like to go to the ophthalmologist, and you have to find the right lenses so you can see how things are done. So it's pretty fun ride. I mean, drinking from a fire hose for sure. But how things over in Texas, man? You ready to come home yet?
No, you know what? I may end up out here a little bit longer. I'm having the time of my life, truly, truly, truly. And our guest and I have had a couple of conversations. I love it. I never imagined. Maybe we'll talk about this a little bit once we bring SMA retired Dailey onto the cast. But I came into the Army. With strong sort of civilian background and entrepreneurial background, and never imagined, and legislation, and I never imagined that you can innovate. It's funny. I don't want to call somebody out, but somebody told me actually right before this mobilization that we're on. He said, "Sir, any good idea that you have, it's already been thought of before. Just go with the basics. Don't be creative. Don't come up with all your crazy new good ideas and stuff." And he said it's already been done before. And you know what? I'm proud to say he's completely and totally wrong. He's completely and totally wrong, because it is possible to innovate. It is possible to make a difference. That's how it's done. So either way, that was a long answer to your short question. I'm having the time of my life and loving it. It's getting warmer, though. I will say that.
I'll bet. But let's bring Dan on, because I'm excited to talk to that guy. Who's coming on next week?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that, and let's make sure people know how they can subscribe. So next week, very excited, we're going back to one of your guys. We're going to have Rear Admiral retired Dan Klopel, and Dan, really, really impressive. Highly recommend everybody check this out. Check out vetjobs.org. He's the founder. Him and his wife. He reached the flag officer rank in the Naval Reserves while also serving as a American Airlines pilot. And him and his wife, they launched what I believe was sort of instigated by the National Guard, a veteran and military spouse employment network, and they are doing awesome things. We're going to talk about his experience, and now he actually has time to put into it. So very excited for that conversation. But Angel, how can people make sure they don't miss an episode?
They can call their friends. They can call us. I think your number is like a 1-800 number or something. But they can subscribe, like, share on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all those things above, and just let people know about what you saw and heard.
Absolutely. So as we bring in our guest over here, and really, I could not be more excited about this conversation. Truly an honor. They say that NCOs, at least in the Army, the backbone of the Army. So our next guest truly must have a very, very strong spine over here, because he reached the highest enlisted rank in the United States Army. Let's bring him here on the screen so you can see his smiling face. SMA retired Dan Dailey. I'll give the short version of the bio bio, because honestly, we could spend an hour just talking about this. But SMA retired Dailey is a native of Palmerton, Pennsylvania. He enlisted in the Army in 1989 and attended basic training AIT as an 11 Bravo, which is the infantry. And he has held, as I mentioned, every enlisted leadership position, certainly in the mechanized infantry, but has served in every possible enlisted rank imaginable, as the CSM of battalion, brigade, division level, and rising to the rank of the 15th Sergeant Major of the Army on January 30th, 2015, all the way up until the mid 2019. So it was as I was sort of coming to the Army, I remember hearing all about SMA Dailey. And in addition to 4 tours in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and New Dawn, SMA Dailey deployed in support of Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield. He's earned many, many well-deserved recognitions. And probably most importantly is he has been married to his wonderful wife, Holly, for 26 years. And they have one son, Dakota. So SMA Dailey, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show, guys. And look forward to having a conversation tonight. Just in case my wife's listening, it's actually 28 years now. That bio is a little dated. So I'm happily married to my what I call starter wife for 28 years, right? She started with me a long time ago, and we're still together. So thanks for having me on the show.
As long as she's not dated, the resume can be dated. She can't be dated. You got to keep her. Right. Yeah, she's fresh as the day you met her, and you're lucky she dated you.
That's right.
I was telling Shalom, there's no way you could be MCPON because you're entirely too youthful and good-looking a dude to be MCPON. And I don't care who knows that.
I know several of the MCPONs, so I'm gonna have to call them tonight and let them know that.
Please, which one? Who's your go-to guy?
MCPON Stevens served when I served. He's a great man. Yeah,
he is a good guy. Rescue swimmer, right?
I'm sorry.
He was a rescue swimmer at one point, I think.
I think he was. Yeah.
Well, I will start this by saying that I'm a runner. I'm up every morning at 04 and I run, and I have my go-to list of podcasts that I listen to and catch up a little bit on what's going on in the world. I feel somewhat disconnected while I'm out here, but also I listen to a number of military-related podcasts. I actually just this morning was listening to the current SEAC, Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He's always had some interesting guests, but truly, and I'm not saying this just because our guest is here on the screen, but I love tuning into the AUSA's many podcasts. But SMA Dailey, you host a fantastic conversation and some cross promotion over here. You've had conversations with many leaders across the Army, and in particular, I've enjoyed some of the recent ones where you've highlighted some of the contributions of the National Guard, Army Reserve, and so on. So again, really, the reason why I reached out and wanted to bring you on is because you certainly have, as mentioned, served in many roles, but you've continued to serve, and that is important. So I want to go back to the very, very beginning, 1989, I believe, and why in the world did you walk into a recruiter's office? Tell us about your family life and your family's support at the time before you met Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I actually walked in the recruiter office much earlier than 1989. I served for several reasons. One, because I wanted to serve my country. But from as long as I can remember, our father talked to us all the time about how special it was for him to serve in the Army. And his brother served, and both of my grandfathers served in World War II, and his brother was in Vietnam, and he wanted to join the Army and serve. And my older brother served before me. So when it was time, I'm from the Poconos, which is northeastern Pennsylvania. Beautiful place. But in the late 80s, not many opportunities for a young man graduating from high school who didn't have any money to go to college. So I used to say all the time, for me, it was coal mine, moonshine, or move on down the line. So I picked move on down the line. But I chose to serve and be a soldier. So I went up and started talking to the recruiter when I was in 11th grade. And then I was only 17 as a senior. So my parents actually signed me into the United States Army, and I was off.
Wow. I know exactly what you mean as far as family. You look to your family members and you either see them in uniform or see the pictures or hear the stories, and you always have that kind of wondering, like, I wonder if I could be that cool. I wonder if I if I was in that situation, it's just that curiosity that most people that never worn the nation's cloth always have. And especially when you get around a bunch of us and we're just kind of poking at each other, and they see that bond and that camaraderie, and like what we talk about MCBond, it's just instinctive. Like those are my guys,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
for me, to be honest with you, several reasons. I wanted to first make my dad proud. He was very proud of his service. He was proud when I saw my older brother leave, for seeing how the smile on his face about his son serving. But I also wanted to get money for college, just like many young people out there that join the military. And I was going to serve and come home, go to college, and start my life. But things changed.
Yeah. Did you go to school while you were in the service?
I did. Yeah. Several times throughout my career. And then finally, I think I have the longest bachelor's degree in history. It took me about 20 years, but I finally got it done.
Mine was 13. I'm right behind you. Mine was 13. It was like a class here at this base, then St. Leo's, then Columbia.
Being in the field and in the infantry, and back in those days, there was no internet, so you had to be, dedicated to go to class. And I'm making excuses. I should have done it much sooner. And if those young soldiers are out there listening, get some classes done one at a time, fight away at it, because you don't want to be a guy like me when you're a division sergeant major in Iraq and most of your professors are younger than you and they're telling you what leadership is all about.
Absolutely. So
no
I'm curious, when you came in and you got started again, 11 Bravo, hustling hard, and did you expect to be a lifer, or did you expect to get in, get out? What were some of your goals and aspirations at the time?
My initial goal was to serve, serve my country, make my father proud, get some college money, and go home, to be very honest with you. Not that I hated the Army. I remember the day in vivid color. I was in Germany, in Schweinfurt. I was sitting down on the quad, and my squad leader walked up to me and said, "Hey, have your reenlistment card." Back then, we used to have these cards that were at the company, and he said, "You're due to reenlist." He said, "Have you thought about reenlisting?" I said, I haven't really. And he goes, "Why not?" I said, "Well, I love the Army. I just came to serve and I'm going home." Right. So I didn't think about it any differently. I don't think a lot of moms and dads out there actually say, "Hey, my son's going to join the Army and stay 30 years and become the sergeant major of the Army." That's not a dream of parents, and it's not a reality for soldiers at that level. Obviously, it's a dream, but not a reality. And then I remember calling my father that night and said, "Dad, I think I'm going to reenlist." And he goes, "I think that would be great." And Sergeant Davis looked at me and he said, "I think you'd make a great non-commissioned officer. Let's send you the primary leadership development course and see how you do." And the rest is history.
Well, it sounds like you served with a lot of the same type of people that I had the opportunity to serve with, and that's a draft era, and they're colorful.
Yeah, we still had a few folks that were originally drafted for Vietnam. Yeah. Not many by that time. Most of them were gone, but a lot of Grenada vets at that time. Those were our heroes. The guys that had the combat patches that went to Grenada. I think that only lasted a few hours, but for us back then,
it was eternity.
Shortly thereafter, though, we all found ourselves wearing a combat patch too. After we went to a place called Saudi Arabia in Operation Desert Storm.
And so you sort of just touched on it. You talked about some of the influence. You had a sergeant, likely a team leader, that saw your potential and wanted to help you advance, and saw an opportunity for you to make this into a career and certainly lead others. So who can you point to as key influences or mentors across your military career? And I'm sure it's too numerous to list, but any couple of names to shout out, and why?
Yeah. Well, I would start with Staff Sergeant Davis. He was the standard bearer of a non-commissioned officer and a squad leader, and probably the best squad leader in the battalion, and not self-proclaimed, but everybody else said that too. And I was lucky enough to be put in his squad, and every single day he trained us hard, he mentored us, and he taught us right, and he invested in us. I think because of him, he's got a lot of responsibility for me becoming the Sergeant Major of the Army, because I tried to be like Staff Sergeant Davis every day of my life for the next 30 years. I honestly did. And then I was what I call the lucky soldier. Every time I went somewhere, I've heard stories about soldiers saying, well, I had a bad leader. I did. I had these phenomenal leaders. I had an excellent platoon sergeant when I PCS'd at Fort Riley, Kansas, named Sergeant First Class Shipley. Absolutely the standard. An awesome guy. Then I had a awesome first sergeant when I went to Korea, Mark Baker, who is still to this day a mentor of mine and a phenomenal friend and an outstanding leader in his own right. And then when I was a first sergeant in Fort Carson, Colorado, my battalion sergeant major was a 2-time best ranger competition winner. I mean, I just kept getting all these super duper heroes, and working for them. And then my officer counterparts too. I can't leave them out. I am lifelong friends with, and I have to mention them tonight, my company commander when I was a first sergeant, Kevin Ryan, who unfortunately did get out of the Army, but he started a brewery, and it's called Service Brewery. It's in Savannah, Georgia. So if you're in Savannah, down on River Street, stop in Service Brewery and say hi to Kev and mention my name, and maybe you'll get a nickel off your beer or something.
Probably charge you extra.
Whole nickel. Oh,
right. Yeah.
He must really like you.
And then as I'm moving up through the ranks as a sergeant major, just phenomenal mentors. General David Perkins, retired as a 4-star. I was with him as a division commander. I was his division sergeant major. Absolutely. We all knew at that point that he was going to be a 4-star general. And I had the awesome opportunity of just being able to watch and emulate his leadership style every single day. And I can go on and on. And then in the culmination, my 2 chief of staffs of the Army, General Odierno and General Milley, who is now the chairman, absolute phenomenal leaders. You do not get to those positions in our military without being really good at what you do. And I used to tell people all the time is, you get in some great places as the SMA, a lot of times in the White House or in the tank inside the Pentagon, which is basically the Situation Room. And just having an opportunity to sit and listen and pick these sound bites from these incredible leaders from all the services, it's an amazing opportunity. It can't be replaced.
And I find a lot of those guys are pretty low ego if you really get to know them. I mean, they really are. They're super approachable and like, hey, this is what's going on, and they'll talk to you and it's talking like your dad, or your mom, or anyone in your family members, and they're just very approachable. It's part of that charisma that gets them there, I think.
Yeah, all very outstanding leaders. Very humble. Completely dedicated. I tell people all the time, the chief, 7 days a week, 365, 20-hour days in many cases, never gets a break, never gets a minute off, and he's always incredibly focused. And when he's around soldiers, like you said, open and honest and joking with them and have fun, but also listening to their needs. And then he would come back with an action list. And those poor staff officers in the Pentagon, they used to get all the things that our soldiers needed fixed across the Army. And as well as I did the same thing too when I came back. But yeah, just incredible opportunities throughout my entire career to be mentored by this nation, the nation's finest collection of leaders.
One thing I've always been admired was the difference with senior enlisted leaders across the board. You have the Air Force chief master sergeants, the gunnies, the Marine Corps, and with the Army, the way you guys, they're senior enlisted and you're commanding officer, it's a marriage is what it is, and it's kind of together, and you go to different commands together, and I always thought that was the neatest thing, because command master chiefs wasn't like that. Often it was kind of different, and you get billeted differently and stuff. And I just thought it was the neatest thing in the world, the way you guys were kind of had each other's backs. Now, have you kind of followed, like when some of those leaders have left, reached out and had those connections with them still?
Absolutely. Still talk to commanding general when I was division sergeant major all the time, General David Perkins. He's one of the senior fellows for AUSA. I talked to Kevin Ryan this morning. He's down there in Savannah. I was supposed to be down there this week, but unfortunately something happened and we had to switch our plans, but we'll get down there to see him. And many others all the time on a regular basis, as much as I can. I should probably do a better job at reaching out more often, but I get a full-time job now too. So they're all busy, but they're all easily approachable to this day. We all stay in great contact and share ideas and just what's going on with our families and life.
You tell us a little bit about your transition. I mean, you go from being the senior enlisted and for just a little organization like the Army, and saying, you got to ask yourself, because you were a kid when you went in, at some point we got to ask ourselves that question: what do we want to be when we grow up, right?
That's
and and when I have to actually put on something that's not a fatigue related item. Tell us about what your discovery and transition was like.
Yeah, scary. Like you mentioned it. I literally started this business when I was a child, and I thought about it from many years prior to me even signing in about joining the Army. And I was 16 when I made the choice, 17 when I signed the paper, or my parents signed for me, and then and I was still 17 when I first came in the Army. I was I didn't turn 18 until I got to my first unit. So this is all I had done. Of course, the Army taught me a lot, right? And moving up through the ranks, and the Army invested in me and educated me throughout the years too, and gave me a great base and foundation. And I wasn't scared about not getting a job or supporting my family. I knew that would come, and I'm a soldier. I'll figure it out. If I have to, I'll pick up trash. I'll dig ditches. Whatever I need to do, I'll do it to make it happen. It's just the change, you heard all your friends talk about, hey, it's different out here. And hey, it's not like the brotherhood and sisterhood we have in the Army. And I got great advice from one of those mentors, General David Perkins. And he said, hey, listen, you were the sergeant major of the Army. You can get a good job. You can, but the great job will find you. And boy, was he right. I decided not to panic about it. My wife and I had already built our retirement house in our hometown. We had a place to live. I went home. She put me to work full time as a contractor. Got my tool belt on. Grew me a little beer at lunch. I was living the dream. And then the phone rang. You were
in your union meetings too, right? Yeah.
And I was building this on the house, and then the phone rang and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Cutting 2x4s right now."
What to do? Yeah, you want help?
And General Perkins was right. That call came from a gentleman named General Carter Ham, the president of AUSA.
Yeah. And we are going to talk a lot more about AUSA because as the other soldier, you're the soldier for life, but as the guy that still puts the uniform on, I'm grateful for all the resources that AUSA has, and we'll talk more about that. But it's important for me to make sure that we, while many folks are tuning in, and I've seen a couple of nice quick comments come in on the chat over here from folks that have very fond memories. I was telling you before we went live over here, I was in a meeting today, and people saw that you and I would be talking this evening, and they all say send their regards to the former SMA, and not everybody tuning in has put the uniform on. And now I see you've got that lovely green polo. I see green is still your favorite color, and you certainly understand that service takes many different shapes and forms. So I want to touch on that for a couple of minutes over here and talk a little bit about, now that you are on the other side of the picture of 30 years of service. What's your advice to the young Dan Dailey that's out there that's considering putting the uniform on? And would you do it again? And what advice would you have to somebody out there?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. And if I could go back and talk to young Dan Dailey, I'd do it all over again. I'd make the mistakes I made. I would take the chances I took and be the young scared kid, and I'd go for it again. I honestly would. Now it's easy for me to say because I ended up being the sergeant major of the Army, but I would go back and do it again. And I think my advice to every young man and woman out there is here's the honest truth: the military is not for everybody. And I've always told soldiers that you join this profession, and that's what it is. It's a profession. You're going to sacrifice. You're going to serve. That's why there's, you can pretty much buy anything in America today, but you can't buy thank you for your service. And you're going to earn that. But I'll tell you what you're going to get. You're going to get a lifetime of friends and family. You're going to get an experience like no other. You're going to feel rewarded internally, spiritually, and you will never, ever, ever feel bad about yourself going to sleep at night, because you served the greatest country in the world, and you donned the cloth of being an American soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman, and Space Force. Boy, it's a whole mouthful now. You got to spit them all out. So many, but I'll tell you, but it's not for everybody, and you got to decide that this is what you want to do. Now, some people will come serve for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and God bless every single one of them. We need soldiers to serve, right? And not everybody wants to stay, and not everybody has to stay, and not everybody can stay, right? And that's okay. But we need great people who realize that they can put their lives on hold, because in many cases you will, right? You're still going to have a life. You're still going to have a family. You're still going to have friends, right? But you're going to serve this nation in a calling that's higher than I believe any other profession in the United States, and you will be fulfilled. I promise you. I promise.
So just on the flip side of that, we know that it's actually a relatively small number of people that can serve, and I can't tell you the number of times that I am stopped by friends of mine that might be a couple of years older than I am, that they say, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous, really, along all the points that you just mentioned. I'm so jealous. I only wish that I would have put the uniform on, but I didn't. Now I've got a couple of kids. I'm 36, 37 years old. What do you have to say to them?
Hey, I say, you know what? Everybody has an opportunity to serve, and you don't have to wear the uniform to do it. I mean, there's all kinds of service. The very easy ones outside the military are being a police officer or a nurse or a school teacher or a doctor. Right, but you don't even have to be one of those. Just going over and helping your neighbor, just going to work every day, doing your part for this country, and being good to people. That's service. There's service for everybody out there, and you don't have to wear the military uniform, and you don't have to be jealous or regretful that you didn't. This nation doesn't need everybody in the military, but it does need everybody to live under one flag. It's the one that's on the wall behind our gentleman co-host here, right? And we all have to agree to live in a way and shape, form that is conducive to all our success. And all our job is, at least my job for the last 30 years, was to give a little bit better opportunity at life for that next generation, to be able to fulfill their dream, to take what they take, and to give what they give back to this great nation. So I think there's many ways to serve. There's a whole bunch of appropriate labels to service, and I'm a firm believer in that. You don't have to just put a military uniform on. And as a matter of fact, going back to my young captain friend down in Savannah, Georgia, when you walk into Service Brewery, there's this humongous chalkboard. And I have to do this because you can't see my hands, but it's big. And when you walk in there, it says, "How do you serve?" And you write on there. Right. Wow, and I want everybody, you can Google it tonight, and you see all the messages on there, right, about how you serve. And I think it's just awesome, right? Because, again, you don't have to wear the uniform. If you do, thank you for your service. But you don't have to serve this nation.
Yeah, great point, because Lord knows we need, those of us leaving and transitioning need people that are like Jim Vasilopoulos, who are great mentors who can keep us from stepping on little landmines in our careers when we make those transitions. And I am so grateful that they serve in their capacity, because it's rich and it's fulfilling and it's so important. I mean, totally agree.
Yeah.
And throughout your career, you've certainly been probably had your speed bumps along the way. At what point did you realize that you were going to make it? You were going to make it, not necessarily to SMA, but I mean, you mentioned that at one point early on you were going to get out. Did that keep happening throughout your career? Because no doubt there were several times that enlist or re-enlistment card came to you. Probably at some point it was modernized just a little bit in the process. But tell us sort of at what point you stopped second guessing yourself and you just said, okay, I'm in.
That's a great question. First and foremost, to answer the first question, I was satisfied becoming a soldier and coming off that airplane the first time to come home and seeing my mother and father there and standing in uniform. That was it for me. That's all I ever thought I would be. It's just a soldier. I say that all the time. I'm just a soldier. I'm proud of that, right? And then I never actually ever drove to the next rank. It kind of just came, and I followed great people who taught me how to do the right things, and I listened, right? And I emulated those who did good, and I tried not to repeat the things of those who did bad. And then all of a sudden, one day I found myself as a division CSM. And once you are a division CSM, you're what is called a nominative SAR major, right? So now your career starts to get a little bit, well, you can't really forecast it because you got to be selected and assigned to the next position. And if not, then it's time to go, right? So you got to prepare for that. So, back to the transition question, I started transitioning when I had 18 years in the Army, thinking that, I'm going to have to be prepared to get out in case I don't get another job. And so I was on my 4th tour to Iraq, and I got a call. It says, hey, you're going to put your name in to compete to be the TRADOC Sergeant Major. Now, I was an infantry ranger qualified guy, a heavy mechanized infantry guy for my whole career. And I was very comfortable going back and forth in Iraq and doing that business. And I was a little nervous about being the TRADOC Sergeant Major. I'm like, TRADOC, I don't know nothing about that stuff. The next thing I know, I got selected for the job. And I remember spending like 3 months investing in educating myself and saying, okay, I'm here. And my job is to make a difference for these soldiers and do all the things I said I would do. And then about the 4th year, it kind of hit me that, oh my God, I'm eligible to compete to be the Sergeant Major of the Army. And when that time came, of course, my boss said, you're going to compete. And so I did. So I competed for the position, and well, there's a little story behind the whole getting to become the Sergeant Major of the Army, but and then it happened, right? So never really planned. It all kind of just fell that way. And I tell people all the time, I'm an average guy. I'm not the best by any means, or the best soldier by any means. I was just very fortunate to have great leaders who took care of me, showed me the right direction, in the right place at the right time, and presented with the right opportunities and took the right chances on tough jobs.
That is, your attitude is something that just excites me, because what I hear when I talk to people about their service, and they did 4 years, they did 6 years, and I just sat here in Kansas and did nothing. Or I did, I was in San Diego and I did nothing. I had a Marine friend that said that, and I was like, attitude means everything. Like, if you have this whole, yeah, let's try that. That sounds great. Let's go try and do some of that stuff. No, I haven't done that yet. Let's go do that. And things just start happening. Your life just starts getting populated with these opportunities that just would pass other people. The one thing I want to ask you is, it's been my experience, or something I've seen that hasn't really made me happy about, was I've seen some senior enlisted leaders, when they get to a certain point, it's usually at the E9 breakout when they're getting ready to go up for the bigger jobs. There's a disconnection. It seemed like there was a disconnection between the person that is actually, on the ground, deck plates. We call it the deck plates, sailor, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to know, it seems like you try to be a soldier and be connected and stay relevant and stay in touch, and support the generals. What were some of the things you did as a leader to make sure that, and this is relevant to leadership as a core, to stay connected and to stay grounded to what was really important to those soldiers?
Yeah. First and foremost, I listened to them, to be honest with you. It's not that hard. All you have to do is find them and ask them. They'll tell you what's wrong with the Army. They'll tell you what's going on. They'll tell you what they're mad about. They'll tell you what they're sad about. They'll tell you what's going great. They will tell you how to run the Army. That's the greatest thing about being the Sergeant Major in the Army. If you just open your ears and listen to those great soldiers, and they have the best ideas. I mean, I used to go to as many town halls and I never forced anybody. They're all voluntary when I go to installation. And I would stand there and talk to the last soldier that wanted to talk to me. And it frustrated my travel team so much, because they're always calling and moving the plane and moving the plane and moving the plane. I'm like, hey, listen, if there's a soldier here that wants to talk about something, we're going to do it, right? Because that's why we're here today. And I got some of the greatest ideas, like black socks. For years, we were wearing a black PT uniform with white socks. And somebody said to me, he goes, hey, you grew up in the 70s? Yeah. Did you have big collars? I said, sure. He goes, well, white socks with a black PT uniform is like having big collars. It doesn't look cool anymore, right? And so it's just, there's the little things, right? But the big things too, and talking to families and just listening to them. They will guide you in the direction you need to go. Now, obviously, you can't give soldiers everything they want, because they got a wish list that's longer than Santa's Christmas list. Trust me, and sometimes you got to be the father and say, no, we're not doing that. That's not what's best for us. But you do have to listen. You do have to listen to them, and you got to give them the time of day. And when you do, they know when you're genuine or not. Soldiers see right through that. They see right through leaders. You're not faking it. You're not faking it. These are smart young men and women, highly intelligent, athletic. They're all those chemicals are flowing in the morning when they get up and do all that exercise, and all those synapse gaps are pinging. They're highly intelligent kids. And if you're not genuine with them, they'll pick it out in a minute. They will. And
then you'll be that guy.
Yeah, just all the leaders out there, just stop, listen to them, right? Talk to them, and see what their issues are, and also lead them. And the only way you're going to do that is by leading from the front. And you don't have to win every day. That's not what I'm saying. You don't have to be athletically gifted, but you do have to be on the field if you expect to lead the team.
That's great. And I have a hunch. I think it's a fairly safe assumption that the majority of our listeners know what the United States Army is. I mean, we are talking to the retired senior enlisted advisor, but not everybody knows about the Association of the United States Army. And when you alluded earlier that you got that phone call and you had that transition after chopping those 2x4s, you jumped over to the Association of the United States Army. So I am blessed to know, and as I mentioned, to listen to some of those conversations, which I think, by the way, are absolutely awesome. So tell us a little bit about the association and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, like you said, I got that call from General Carter Ham and asked me if I would come work the Associated United States Army, which, again, I was blessed. The timing was right. There was a previous SMA that was transitioning away from there, and I wasn't done being a soldier. I was just jobbed out of the Army. There was no jobs left. I mean, it was just, so, I had the transition, and the right thing to do once you're the Sergeant of the Army is leave. You have to, right? Because the next Sergeant of the Army deserves her or his time, and you can't be in the way. So you got to go home. So the Association of the United States Army is interesting. Most people don't know this. It was actually started by the Army. The Army actually created it after World War II, because previous to that, the only association that existed were branches, right? So you had the Infantry Association, the Armor Association, the Artillery, the Aviation. And the Air Force left the Army. It was the Army Air Corps. They were leaving. And the Army said, hey, we got to get our stuff together, all right? We can't start being branches anymore. We got to be an army. So they created the Association of the United States Army. And the first president was the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army. The first honorary president was the President of the United States. And then a few years later.
Which one?
Oh, you know what? Now you're going to catch me here. It was 70 years ago. So
Eisenhower?
It was Eisenhower. That's right. It was Eisenhower. Yeah, it was Eisenhower. So a few years later, they said, okay, we're starting to get into the business of doing things that soldiers probably shouldn't be doing, but need to be done on behalf of the Army, advocating for the Army on Capitol Hill, working with industry, all these things. So they decided to transfer it to civilian leadership and make it a nonprofit organization. And what do we do today? The Association of the United States Army is the voice of the United States Army. We are the professional organization of soldiers. Every profession in America has an association to represent them. We do everything from represent them on Capitol Hill to advocate on behalf of the leaders, the secretary, the chief, the sergeant of the Army. We are the generators of the Army magazine, so we help publicize the Army. And our job is to educate, inform, and connect. That's simple. Educate, inform, and connect the American people, our members, our elected officials, with that of our soldiers and its leaders in the United States Army. We do a lot. All you have to do is visit ausa.org. You can see all the great publications and all the products and all the events that we have. We're most famous for our annual convention, which is in October 11th through 13th at the Walter E. Convention Center.
Will it be this year? Are they going to do it this year?
It's going to be in person this year. I promise.
I'll make sure Shalom's there.
Unless another pandemic happens. But as long as the city says we can come, and right now they're saying we can, we're going to have the AUSA conference. But there's a lot more. So check us out at ausa.org. And the podcast you're talking about, mine is called Soldier Today podcast. It's part of the Army Matters podcast series. There's a lot of stuff on there. There's something in there for everybody. But if you want to hear recent conversations with people like the Sergeant of the Army, the Sergeant of the National Guard, the Army Reserve, or our focus on the Guard and Reserve this summer, we're talking to all the Sergeant Majors of each of the states. Well, we won't get through all the states. There's a lot of them, right? But we're starting with the big ones, the Texas, the PA. I think we're going to California next. And they talk about all the great things that our soldiers are doing. But plenty of products out there. And then we have some digital subscriptions that are all free. That's a great thing about AUSA. We want you to be a member. We need members, right? But we're never going to turn a soldier away. And a soldier can use all of our products. And so can everybody else, honestly. But we do a lot for Army. It's a great job. It kind of was an easy transition. And all the clothes that I had still kind of fit with the job. So I didn't have to go out and buy a new wardrobe other than the suits. I can't wear my military uniform. I had to buy a lot of suits. Yeah, so it's great.
Angel, don't you think that if Dan Dailey was not doing the job that he's doing right now, don't you think he has the voice for podcasting and for radio?
I'm feeling threatened right now.
Yeah. Well,
I have the face for radio.
That's right. Mom always said I have a face for radio.
My face for radio.
Angel, I'll give you the last word.
Dan, I just want to ask, and then thank you so much. I just want to ask, what's since you've been in this role, what's a piece of legislation or something you're actively involved in that you're really passionate and excited about?
Oh gosh, there's probably 5 or 6 a week that we're working on. One right now I'm talking about is there's a move on Capitol Hill to take some of the power away from our commanders and adjudicating certain offenses against soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. And one of the things we're doing is we're advocating on behalf of the commanders. We don't think that's the appropriate step to take. And it's in regards to sexual assault, a serious problem, right? And this is a serious problem that needs serious solutions, right? But this is all the after the fact stuff. We think in order to combat sexual assault, we have to get to the preemptive stuff and get ahead of it. Taking the power away from a commander's ability to adjudicate those type of cases is not going to prevent sexual assault. That's the treatment. What we have to do is the prevention. So that's one of the things.
Address systemic failures that cause or are the root of these kind of things.
Yeah. Now, and our elected leaders are concerned, and they should be, right. And they want to take action to correct this. And there's some great people up there, and they're all great. There are elected leaders, and they believe in our military, and they work hard to help us and fund us and and give us the things we need. But sometimes, we have to educate them, inform them. Right, on what are the consequences of this? What is it really going to fix? And so that's one of the things we're advocating on behalf of our soldiers today. And the good news is we don't do it alone. We work with the other associations. So we are hand in hand with the Association of the Air Force, the Marine Corps, the Navy, all of them. And we go up there as a coalition, and we circulate these issues back and forth between each other, make sure that we're all on the same page, and then we go up there and advocate on behalf of our senior leaders across all the branches of the military.
Thank you, Dan. You know what? You could have taken a knee and dodged the question. You didn't. You grabbed it, and you knew where my head was, and I really appreciate that your character. Thank you so much, and thank you for everything you've done and for everything you continue to do to show people what it means to serve.
Well, thank you, team. And I got to have you on my show. Maybe we should flip this around, right? So have you on Soldier Today. But then we're going to grill you, though. The tough questions.
You named the time, and as long as my employer doesn't beat me up, I'm good.
Yeah, well, we could, just like you, we can record them anytime. We'll do that. We'll bring you guys on Soldier Today, and we'll have a great conversation for our listeners. But
I look forward to it.
And I echo what Angel said. I truly appreciate it. And I'll say, as I said a little bit ago, I came into the Army during the tail end of your time as SMA. And that was when I was learning what an SMA is. And now as a junior officer, valuing the partnership with my battle buddies, and I've been fortunate to have several conversations. Look forward to many, many more with you, and I'm grateful to have the mentorship. But you certainly have continued to put leadership out there, and I see some of the comments that have come in. And just on that final question that Angel asked about the sharpened sexual assault, I can tell you from being involved in these issues here on Fort Bliss that ultimately the answer really is, and I know SMA, you're you're continuing to advocate, it really has to do with conversations and understanding, and that's what it's all about. And I know that it's the same in the Army, same in the Navy. Bottom line, it's really all about, we are in a people business, and that's why, on that closing note, that's why the title of the show is "We All Serve." That ultimately, whether you put that uniform on and you serve for 2 years or for 30 years, or you never put the uniform on, as long as you are serving, as long as you are giving back to people, and that is so highlighted right now in this era of COVID, as we continue to unravel from that. We need more people to step up, need more people to give, and the heroes that are out in the community, I mean, I'm grateful for that every day. So again, thank you, SMA retired Dan Dailey, for your continued service, and thank you for joining us on the conversation. Before we wrap up episode 47 of We All Serve, again, next week at the same time, same place actually, we will have Rear Admiral retired Dan Klopel, and I know Don Freed, I know you are watching, so thank you for setting that up. Grateful for that. And really, we're going to continue that theme that we just heard tonight about on the Soldier Today podcast, talking with National Guard and Army Reserve. That is an issue that that Rear Admiral retired Klopel is tackling by working on employment, as well as, I can tell you, being on active duty right now.
They need to fix that DD-214 thing. Those guys deserve a DD-214. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, absolutely. So we're going to have a good conversation. We are going to have a good conversation. So make sure you tune in, and make sure you click subscribe, rate, review, and share, and find more of these great conversations. And be sure to check out the Soldier Today podcast, and be sure to check out everything AUSA. I usually do this earlier, but there we go. We have it there on the screen, AUSA.org.
Be sure to flipping, dude.
I know I am. I was so into the conversation.
You're just jiving like, yeah.
I forgot to press buttons. I know. Well, again, thank you. And that's a wrap for us. We'll be back next week for episode 48. Until then, have a good evening.
Thank you.